My minutes go. Thanks. I think that will work. Thanks. Two quick ones to start. The poet's job. Pick up everything that shines. Discard the gold. Keep the light. Trigonometry for the Trinity. And the Lord, having rested from his labors, sat up, looked around, and seeing how his critters had fucked up his creation, he raised his hand and put a bullet through his head. Thus the third eye was born. A poem that's in George's New York Anthology, shipping out at 1:25 p.m. on Herman Melville's 200th birthday. Heaven's Gate is headed for Whitehall at 16.7 knots. Atlantis is headed for New York Harbor at 8.4 knots. Owl's Head is headed to New York at 22.8 knots. Atlantic Compass is heading for US NYC at 15.5 knots. Spirit of America is headed more or less towards Staten Island at 16.9 knots. Then again, is headed nowhere at 4.4 knots. Thomas Jefferson rests at Weehawken, New Jersey Pier 79 at 0.2 knots. Anthem of the Sea heads towards King's Wharf, Bermuda at 0 knots. Jewel of the Harbor is hiding under the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Spirit of New Jersey is headed to Town Point Park at 7 knots. Paradigm is heading somewhere at 8.3 knots, visible from my window. Henry Hudson is doing a harbor cruise at 4.2 knots. Alandra Corello and Nancy P. rest near Constable Hook. Celestial is heading north at 5.5 knots. Memories Made lies at 0 knots in Edgewater. Dana Alexa is headed for Bay Ridge Flats at 1.6 knots. BW Ryan is headed for NL RTM at 0.4 knots. Radiant Pride is headed nowhere at 0.0 knots. Destiny was traveling at 6.2 knots to an unknown destination 10 minutes ago. And earlier today we heard poems for Steve Cannon and Steve Dalashinsky. Here is my poem for Steve Dalashinsky. A 3-minute composition a la mode Dalashinsky to celebrate Steve. And when I crossed the street, St. Mark's, it was from Puerto Rico imports to the northeast corner of 2nd and St. Mark's. I thought I should go sit on the terrace of the Dallas barbecue to write this poem to you, Steve-O, to celebrate your days and nights in New York as incarnation, as New York is incarnation, or you are incarnation of, to celebrate your days and nights. That is your life here, as I remember an occasion when I crossed this street, St. Mark's, where by all rights I should have run into you when, back 69, 70, 71, but didn't, or we did, but didn't know who we were, too stoned maybe to look out, stuck inside not only the big shetty, but our own young self, selvas oscuras, if you permit me to quote that obscure Italian Dante in the East Village, psychodelicatessens, jungle under growth and ground. And right here I am again, coming from Puerto Rico imports with my twice 1.5 pound coffee beans under my arm and crossing over to the northeast corner of 2nd and St. Mark's on a late summer, early evening, and didn't think of going to sit down at the Dallas barbecue terrace because for the nth time I wondered what a fucking Texican barbecue was doing in the East Village on that hallowed corner just across Gem Spas, where back when was now, we'd run into Ginzy picking up this just delivered copy of tomorrow's New York Times. And anyway, that time the terrace was clearly full, no place for me, every chair taken, and on 2 of them around a small table laden with food, there you and Yuko sat absorbed and digging in with visible pleasure, though neither sun nor hunger nor napkin could wipe away that slight smirk of skepticism played around your mouth from birth. You hadn't seen me yet, so I took out my phone, shifted coffee bags on the left arm, and snapped you and Yuko eating. See, here is the photo. I'm not making this up. Then you saw me and said, "Hi, bub." And I said, "Steve-o, Jolly-o." Got to boogie to a reading. You said, "Go, man, go. Say hello to the lady. Maybe I'll see you later. Have 2 other gigs I need to catch first." And when I crossed that street again, in the first line of the poem, my friend, it was cold and wintry, and all the tables and chairs were empty. I thought of sitting down to write this poem, but there was no music to cut the cold, and so I moseyed on till nights later. I mean, like tonight, it kinda came natural, took out pen and notebook, just as Joël and Faye started to play here at the Zürcher, with Yuko a few chairs away and Nicole sketching in the back, and you not quetching by my side, but here, yes, here to be here, that music, here. Lend me your ear, Steve-o, Steve-o, Dalla, Dalla, Mensch, I miss you so. On September 14th, Dante's death day, gone for 700 years, leaving us here in the Middle Kingdom, purgatory, which was paradise once, but which we soiled and are about to turn into hell, or at least an inferno for Homo sapiens, the disappearing species, if it comes to that. There's life left, there will be life left, and right, it will move on, even without us. It will rejoice in us gone. I can hear the birds celebrating, the trees too, the air cooling, the sea cooling. It will be the real paradise, the one sans sapiens, that arrogant interference. And I'll close with a short poem for one of my favorite pictures, Darling's Curve. I'm confused. It's not totally Ronnie I see. I mean here, brilliantly commenting on an early spring game, but a skinny, sharp-looking, even in those outdated uniforms, dude throwing me a curve all the way from that 80s game into my tired mitt, this mid-morning, too early or too late, in my shelter-at-home base living room, and I'm happy to be an armchair catcher this COVID morn, rather than a flailing bat out in the world. Thank you.
Once more for Pierre Joris.